Welcome in. It is Unscripted. My name is Timothy Lindsay. Aaron McLaughlin is to your right or to your left.
Hello.
In radio, they always do this when they're doing a broadcast of a sport. They talk about
Yeah.
how the team is moving from right to left on your radio dial, which kids now are just
Okay.
like, what are
Yeah,
they
I don't know
talking
what
about?
I don't even know what that means. I'm not that much younger than you.
Well, if I'm driving and I'm listening to what's his first name?
Spotify in my
Well,
car.
no, yeah. So I'll regionalize this. If I'm listening to Bob Sochi and
Okay.
call the Patriots game, he would say Patriots are moving left to right on the radio. So if you were sitting in the stands, you're watching them drive down the field to your right, as it were.
Sure.
It's a thing people do. So that's why I was just saying
It's a
she's
thing.
either on your left or your right.
It's a thing people say. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know, because I feel like we do this and then I view the video and then I'm like, oh, she was on the other side.
Oh.
Are
Yeah.
we all sufficiently confused? Awesome. So
Yeah. Welcome.
unscripted, we put together, we want to have conversations with people that have leaned into their passion and they are pursuing, their one true love, or their something that may have always been on the back burner. A few of the people that we do have coming up, we've got a friend of ours who is in the restaurant business. We have a friend of ours who is actually does do sports, not necessarily play-by-play, but is involved in with sports.
Okay.
Coming to a theater near us soon. This
Yeah.
week, we wanted to talk about, it's October. So we're going to talk about the crucial catch of catching all the cancers. And we don't mean
Sure.
catching, but catching the symptoms and maybe
Sure.
intercepting the problem of,
Yeah, like early detection. Early
that-
detection.
that's what we're looking for. And
Yeah.
to be completely transparent, we've had a little bit of a hiatus because we had some appointments and some
Yes.
things going on, and we're going to talk about that today. So we do
Sure.
want to focus on the
Sure.
fact that Erin has had her battle that continues with it.
Yes.
You said it was really funny the other day when you said it, because cancer is hysterical. You said the other day
is.
you
I
referenced
mean,
the fact how you got the easy one. So
oh yeah,
obviously
I got the
we're
easy
going to
cancer.
dive deep into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did want to reference the fact that we just want to talk about in general. You and I
Yeah.
have been talking the last week that people are just sort of getting maybe a little lax, and wherever you stand on COVID-19, whether you feel
Oh
it's
yeah.
real, this just in, it's real, or you think it's not real, whatever the case may be, it's become,
Well, I think the president found out it's real.
yeah, there's such a comfort level with it.
Yeah.
That sort of to reel it all back in, and especially right now where we're going into most people that have children, they're back at school. Some of them might be remote learning, but kids are back at school. We're seeing those numbers happen.
Yeah.
Locally for us with the Patriots here in New England, Cam Newton down
Right.
for the count. Apparently he might be back to practice later this week with a couple more good tests. Stephon Gilmore, defensive player of the year, defensive back for the Patriots, popped today. They canceled practice. And there's also a guy on the practice squad, so you can see a few more numbers there. So it's ironic that baseball got through everything. They're into the playoffs now. They should be okay. Hockey finished. Basketball is about to wrap up. Friday night, the Lakers can wrap that up, and they all bubbled.
Well,
So the
that's what I was
question
just
was,
gonna ask. Didn't baseball like shut it down though? Like they were, or am I just thinking about? So like I know basketball, they were all staying in the same hotel. Like they were basically like in an athlete camp, right? Like, and they were playing games with no spectators.
sure.
And I think it's interesting that because these different sports have handled it different ways in terms of they're all doing testing,
Yeah.
but what's happening when they leave their work location, right?
Yeah.
So like
Interesting.
we can't control adults when they go home at the end of the night after.
Well, no, but the NHL bubbled.
Right. And
For
that's
the
what
season. The NBA bubbled for the remainder, both
Right.
of them for the remainders of their season, they
Right.
bubbled up. The Major League Baseball did not bubble up.
Right.
And
And they had like entire teams that got sick, right?
at the very onset, the Marlins at the very onset
Yeah.
had an issue. So what the problem there is, what city were you in yesterday when you were asymptomatic that we
Right.
don't know if you lick somebody else's face?
You.
They have to be afraid. They have to warn the team they're about to play, maybe
Right.
blow that series up.
Right.
And then what they do know is because there were some very infamous guests on a few different podcasts. We'll call them what's the term I'm looking for? Um,
I don't know.
maybe
I
it,
don't
it
know
might
what you're
be
gonna say.
it
I'm a
might
little
be it
afraid.
might be Instaho. Maybe it's just Instagram star. Some Instagram
Sure.
stars that were
Okay.
being invited into the bubbles,
Yeah.
just to play like Cards Against Humanity or something like that. Probably completely innocent.
Okay.
Some girls were broadcasting on certain shows that they went in and entertained many of the teammates.
Excellent.
Yes.
So
So
that's, you know, right.
there's patient zero for you.
So
So
that's
that was
when the
happening, but
bubble
yet they
has
got
not
through
been
it.
working.
The
Right.
NFL, if you watched Hard Knocks, I know you and Maddie watch Hard Knocks.
Yes.
Hard Knocks focused this year on the Rams and the Chargers because they're both in Los Angeles. They wanted to focus on SoFi, gorgeous new stadium, the size of Rhode Island. And
Right.
in doing so, every day at camp, everybody's getting scanned up, getting the thing shoved up their nose.
Yeah.
They all had a very Fitbit like thing on their wrist that would go off and turn red if you were within 6 feet of another. It was, I don't know what
Right.
the wrist packet is called. They did a really good job, but now they're starting to pop because these guys are back in their cities. They're back with
Right.
their families. And yes, they're going out. The rumor is that apparently Cam Newton, quarterback for the Patriots, went to the mall. And
Right.
I can't fault him for that. If he goes, he's not touching any doors. He's opening stuff with his elbows. He goes in for a pair of socks. It begs the question, don't you have somebody who can go buy you
Yeah,
socks?
but
And I
like
don't know what
that
he was buying.
stinks. Like,
Yeah, it
I mean, honestly, if you're like a human being who likes to be around other human
yep.
beings, like I'm over it. Like I saw someone yesterday, a teacher, a mom that I taught with a few years ago, and she's a mom in town, and we were dropping our kids off for field hockey practice. So strange. Okay, like we can't even within the same town get consistent. The soccer players
Mm,
on the field over were playing with their masks on.
mm,
Okay,
yep.
practicing with their masks on. The next field, our kids are playing field hockey, no masks. They don't need them, but the parents can't stay. And
Ah,
so there's like signs of like, like this is the drop off zone, and there's like little posted things. And
yep.
so we can only walk, and it's like one at a time, and we walk to drop the kids off. And the kids are not allowed to touch the ball. And I think because they're less on top of each other, maybe, I don't
Mm.
know, in field hockey, I have no idea. But, anyways, I saw this other mom, and I was like, I'm so over this now. She's like, oh my gosh, I've been over this for 5 months. Okay.
Yeah.
She's like, welcome to the party, Erin. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm done too. So I think like, of course he probably had someone who could go to the mall, but like I want to go to the mall. I
Yeah.
don't want to be at home in a bubble and then just go to work. It stinks.
Well, it's somebody said to Warren Buffett, why do you get a cheeseburger from McDonald's every day? Because I'm a guy in a free country and I like cheeseburgers. Like, so I appreciate that. Well, we've got Aiden. Aiden will start a 5 weekend series with Saturday tournaments. It can only be one of us there.
Yeah.
So his little brother can't go. Either myself or the wife will go and stand on the sideline. They have to enter the field during practice on his practice nights from their designated corner where their pod
Right.
out. When they get their helmet on, if they have their helmet on, and I should say when they have their helmet on, they don't need to be masked up. If they're on the sideline, they're supposed to have some sort of a pull up or something. The coaches have to wear a mask when in the field, but like the coaches are trying to communicate, and
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
it's yeah, we're gonna have to get used to it because I said to my boys a while ago, I think we might be in for an existence of because if you look, remember after like H1N1 or whatever it was called, and there was the swine flu,
H1N1.
H1N1,
Yeah.
swine flu, all the
Yeah.
things. If you see any footage and they're just doing like B-roll background footage
Yeah.
of a story over in Asia, you see everybody milling about with a mask on.
Yeah. It's
And
commonplace. Yeah.
and I think it might become, I think as we get into like the next full season of this being a thing, you're going to see more and more. But you see Pelosi, she's always got Donna Karen. She's got branded masks.
Right.
Pelosi's just like, it's like a $400 mask she's wearing, but it's, it matches her outfit and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to become more commonplace. Like Aiden right now has like, trying to think of the brand that he loves. He loves a lot of brands. Anyway, he's got branded masks because he's a beautiful princess and he wants to look good at school, right? till
I
further
mean,
notice.
my kids too, they, well, my little one, not so much, but my older one, absolutely. Middle school, you need to,
Yep.
Mommy, it doesn't match my outfit.
Yep. Yep.
Cares? It's
Hollister.
keeping you.
That's what Bubba has.
Oh,
Hollister.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So all that being said, we had been talking about that, and we obviously wanted to address because rather than just not talk about it, let's talk about it. It's October. We do have quite a few friends that we work with who have, as of late, very recently, also been battling breast cancer. It's something that we're
Yes.
doing at our company. We're doing a Flamingo Friday thing. Everybody flamingos up on Friday. We're flocking yards to raise money for cancer.
Yeah.
I guess just to create a little more awareness, talk about what you went through and what you're continuing to go through, just so people have a better understanding. Because you joked the other day, and I was thinking of it like the next day. I laughed because you were being sarcastic, you were being
Yeah.
nonchalant and cavalier, and you're just like, yeah, because I got the easy one.
Yeah.
Everybody says, oh, that's the easy one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So in the world of cancer, thyroid cancer is considered the easy cancer.
Mm.
And don't
It's a fun little weekend. Yeah. It's a fun little weekend.
Anyone who's listening, if a friend or family member says that they have thyroid cancer, please don't say, well, it's better than breast cancer. Cancer sucks. I don't care what kind of cancer it is, it sucks.
Yep.
And so I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, oh boy, in 2018, no, 2019. 2019, and I had my thyroid removed in May of 2019, so it's been a little over a year. And I had 4 cancer tumors in my thyroid that I found after we came home from a conference, and my voice was raspy. Yeah. And it wasn't getting better. And some clients and some coworkers and a few different people were like, "Are you sick?" I was like, "No, I'm not sick." And my voice, and I was having a hard time swallowing water.
I was going to say, what was the tipping point that you knew, okay, I know what a sore throat feels like. Like, what was the thing that said, I've got to go see somebody?
So it's like it backtracks even earlier. Like when I had my second daughter, I had something called postpartum thyroiditis for about a little over a year, which is essentially an autoimmune attack to your thyroid. So it's like an infection in your thyroid. At that point, you can get it after you have a baby. Men get it too. It's just sort of, it can happen as a result of an illness or stress to your body, and you end up kind of with an attack on your thyroid. So I had that, and it didn't recover in what is a normal amount of time.
Yep.
So it can last as long as a year. Mine went 18 months, which is longer than normal, and was at that point diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. I had been diagnosed with thyroiditis in the past. I just sort of had a wonky thyroid, but at that point, she's 9. I had an ultrasound of my thyroid. At that point, I had 2 little, almost nothing tumors, and one that was like iffy, right? Yeah. Like I had 2 they weren't even worried about, and one they're like, it's not quite the size that we need to do anything about. We'll wait and see. I wasn't on any medication for thyroid, nothing. Like it kind of subsided.
Yeah.
So when we got back from that trip, I had not been feeling well. I had it had been a while. I was having a hard time sometimes swallowing.
Yep.
I was feeling tired. And if you know me, I'm kind of like the Energizer Bunny. I just go, go, go. So I was tired, and that wasn't normal for me.
I'm just making a quick note here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, always, I see
everybody has that friend who's a hamster on crack. That would be you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I've never
get in the van. Where are we going? Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
The van doesn't have any tires. We'll figure it out. Get in the van.
Yeah. So, and I would get a good night's sleep, and I wasn't recovering.
Yeah.
And then really, I think the like final thing was, you would think not being able to swallow would be the final thing,
Yeah, it's all right.
but
I'll push through. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. Get in the van.
seriously, like that's what you would think, right? But like for me, the final like I gotta go to the doctor
Yeah,
was that my voice was strange. So which is a symptom of thyroid cancer.
yeah,
But my voice just didn't sound like my voice. And I had vocal training for years and years and years. So my uh, being attuned to the sound of my voice was, I was very aware of it for a
yeah.
while, and it wasn't until other people were starting to say something that I was like, okay, it's not just me being a weirdo thinking my voice sounds funny,
Right.
like, so that was the point where I called the doctor and was like, I think I need to be seen. Yeah, for me, my blood work was all normal. And she actually started to screen me for depression, which is really funny. Um, and I was like, can you stop with the mental health screening? Something's wrong. I really feel like something's wrong with my thyroid.
Oh, she wasn't talking about that like from an attach rate, like, hey, people that battle this tend to go into depression. She
This
was she
this
was
was like
calling
a
that.
bit before I got diagnosed.
Oh,
So like
okay. Okay.
I went in and I was like, hey, I need an appointment. I think something's going on with my thyroid. Um, and so I went in and she was like, oh, it's a little bit swollen, but let's do some blood work. And oh, your blood work seems okay. I mean, I don't know. And she started to screen me for depression. I was like,
Well,
listen, I know what you're doing.
well, and I fear I'm going to pronounce it wrong. I think I know how to
Yeah,
say it right. Munchausen's disease, right? When people that
it's,
are sometimes people that battle clinical depression go down the
yeah.
pathway of Munchausen's disease because you are constantly um
You think
heading
you have
heading
things.
heading into for medical help because you're just looking for attention. Typically it will happen with a parent and they're imposing it upon a child.
Yeah, so
So
that's by proxy. So
yeah,
that's Munchausen by proxy. Yeah,
okay.
and I've experienced or witnessed that as a
Yeah,
teacher, and
yeah,
it's not great. Um, that it's a serious mental illness, right?
sure,
So
sure.
I, I think
Do
I
you
was
feel
sort
like
of
that's where she was sort of leading with it? Like you're making it up a little touch, maybe? And nothing
um
against her. It's part of what they do, but
yeah, I think they're so trained to screen for mental health at this point, which is
sure.
important. And absolutely, our medical professionals need to be screening for mental health, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, thyroid cancer is one of the cancers that it takes a really long time, on average, 2 to 4 years to get diagnosed,
Wow.
um, for some people. And, because the onset of symptoms is sort of it's not, it's like lackluster, right? You don't really know. It's like you present like, I'm a little
It's the
tired.
easy one. It's not
Yeah,
very exciting.
yeah, like I'm tired. I sometimes have a hard time swallowing
Yep.
water. My voice
Interesting.
sounds weird.
Yeah.
Like all that's, it's sort of like, what are you talking about? It
Right.
doesn't, and I don't know. It just, but ultimately I got sent for an ultrasound, and that's when they were like, oh, okay. We
Yeah.
need to send you to a specialist. I
Something's
went,
here. Yeah.
yeah, and I went, and then, so it was kind of like a lot of doctor's appointments. Um, Thankfully, was able to get my thyroid removed pretty quickly. At the time that, so one of the reasons people are sort of insensitive around thyroid cancer is because we have such a high success rate in terms of
Sure.
life, right? So
Sure.
like we have, it's like an 85% cure rate. Um, but the your quality of life after having your thyroid removed is greatly changed.
Yeah.
Um,
I hadn't
and
noticed.
yeah, for some of us, we have a higher recurrence rate than others.
Mm,
Thyroid cancer is one of the cancers that is never considered actually fully in remission, um, which a lot of people don't realize. They think like, oh, they took your thyroid out, they give you
you're good.
medicine,
Yeah.
and you're done.
Yeah.
You're good. So for me, I had my full thyroid removed, and then one of my parathyroids, because it was wrapped up in my cancerous thyroid, so it had to go. Your parathyroid's actually they monitor and control the calcium level in your body,
Yeah.
which most people don't realize controls your muscles. So it's what calcium, you think bones, right? But calcium also it serves another function in your body, which is to keep your heart pumping and your blood moving around your body, and your muscles from involuntarily tightening up. And so I had to have two. They never found one. We all have four. Every human being has four parathyroid glands. I have three now, two that were transplanted during my surgery, which is really weird.
Interesting.
They're basically the size of a grain of rice, maybe a little bit smaller.
Huh.
And they can move them. Sometimes they'll even put them in your wrist.
Okay.
So
Skip a bit. This is where I get squeamish.
Yeah, it's
like I can watch
Legos,
Nova.
right?
I can watch them cut some fat bastard open, and they're doing open heart surgery on them. As soon as you start talking about grains of rice in your wrist, or like the plate,
so
biology class when my teacher was talking about white T cells, platelets, I can feel the platelets bouncing off my vein walls. I'm like, like start cat gagging. Yeah, I can't. I can watch it. I can't talk about it.
I grew up in a medical family, so I can talk about all of this stuff.
No,
right?
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, as a result of that, I also have a parathyroid condition. So my parathyroid glands are sometimes working well and sometimes not. And it will cause like crankiness, and my whole body will kind of lock up. I'll have muscle spasms, headaches, fatigue. It's sort of like the flu times 10 when it gets out of whack.
I feel like you had something going on before or after surgery, and you were telling me like you couldn't get off the couch, or I forget what it was. Something like Maddie had to carry you upstairs. I forget what it was, but you had something that reminds me of what you just described.
Yeah, so my calcium, it's like a whole other thing, but my surgery went pretty well, except for the fact that my parathyroid glands really took a beating during the surgery.
Yeah.
So I ultimately ended up with another week in the hospital trying to get my calcium back to normal. I had every symptom of low calcium, which is kind of crazy. So my calcium, I think at its lowest was like 7.1 or 7.2. At 7, you either have a stroke, cardiac arrest.
That's fun.
Or a seizure, like grand mal seizures. Forget.
Yeah.
So I was like borderline. And you basically get like tetany in your whole body. So your whole body like locks up and twitches. And I had auditory hallucinations, which my doctor thinks is really awesome, because he's like, I've never heard anybody actually get that far.
Wow.
Because you usually like die, right? So I was like.
So you were hearing voices?
Yeah, so I didn't hear voices.
Okay.
My auditory hallucination. So it's actually part of that. So anyone who has your thyroid removed, be on the lookout for this. It starts with twitching and tingling, and it's sort of like pins and needles, and it progresses, right? So when I got to the really low part, we were watching a movie, and I was like, does this sound weird? Boy. It sort of was like the Charlie Brown voice and underwater at the same time.
Yeah.
And so everything sounded really like drawn out and strange. And like I had a head full of cotton underwater. It was very, very weird. So I was kind of hearing sounds not the way they were. So I did. Some people will actually have like visual hallucinations. I did not have that, I don't think. But I just, and then spent a week in the hospital, and then I spent another month probably going to have my blood drawn for the first 2 weeks, it was every 24 hours, and then it was every 48 hours, and then I graduated to like every week. I absolutely looked like a drug addict. I had so much scar tissue, they couldn't even find me places to draw my blood anymore. Yeah, it was awful. Like I was on a first name basis with Evie at the lab because she'd be like, "Come on in, honey. All right, like we're running out of spots."
Right.
I'm like, and she's like, "You got to ice when you get home." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
um, and then I graduated to like a week, and then every 2 weeks, and now I'm on the 3-month plan of getting my calcium checked. So,
Okay.
I think I just had a doctor's appointment, and I think I may be able to wait every 6 months. That's the goal for the next one.
Sure.
So, yeah, easy cancer, right? It's the easy one.
So from watching, yeah, it's not.
And you've lived through it
And
as
none of them are. Yes.
yeah.
So when I think it was he's on HGTV. His name's, I think it's Tyreek. He flips out in California. A viewer watching their show
Yes.
noticed a protrusion on his neck, and
Tarek El Moussa.
yeah, and they emailed or whatever the producers, and he looked into it, and he got early detection because somebody who was aware of it watching the show said that looks odd.
Yeah, so a nurse, actually, it was a nurse, and he, bummer for him. And I'm so, like, just as another thyroid cancer survivor, like, I'm really proud of him right now because he's being really open about what he went through, where
Yeah.
I don't think he was. So he ended up with a lot of difficulty. He also ended up with testicular cancer at the same time.
Wow.
So he had his thyroid removed, which is your hormone. It is this sort of some people will call it like your second brain. It controls so much of your body. It
Yeah.
controls your body temperature. It controls your just your ability to think clearly, your mood, like your immune system, everything. And so he had that out, and then within a short amount of time was also diagnosed, I think, with testicular cancer, and ended up on an additional hormone replacement, which caused all kinds of other issues. So he has like a lot of hormone problems too, that he's been more public about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had a protrusion, and if you ever watch his scar, my scar is up here.
Yep.
So his scar is down here, which means that he probably had a lot of lymph nodes involved.
Yeah.
So he had what's called a neck dissection as well. I know, you get to know all these things though, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. Feeling
my
good.
scar is right here. This is it, and it just had my thyroid taken out, but he probably had all kinds of stuff taken. I had samples taken out, but I didn't have to have the rest of mine.
Right.
Hopefully I will never have to. And yeah, and then who else is so there's a few like famous people who have had, and they have some, like the girl who does what's the show? The Good Witch. I can't think of her name. Was she on JAG?
Oh God, I have no idea. No idea.
She's the lead in that show, and she is a gnarly scar. Hers is like that.
Yeah.
And then what's his name from Shark Tank? He's always sharp dressed. Damon?
Yeah. Yep.
Also thyroid cancer survivor.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a few like people who right now in our current culture are talking about it publicly, which I think is important because it's one of those cancers. So for me, had I not pushed, I actually had a really aggressive one. So while thyroid cancer has an 85% cure rate, there are a few types of thyroid cancer that are really aggressive and grow quickly and can be a problem.
Yeah.
I had one of those, but early detection is the biggest difference. Like now I'm just like, they got it all. I have a very low chance of recurrence because of, basically the tumors were fully encapsulated, nothing had spread.
Yeah.
So that makes all the difference, where I have, other friends that I've met during the journey that had the same type of cancer that I had, and they have had to do chemo, and they've had to do multiple surgeries. Of a friend who's done 4 surgeries, and there's no end in sight, and it's because it's continuing to spread because they got diagnosed later in the process, right? So
for detection's sake too, because I think, and I
yeah,
know guys know this, but the misconception is
yeah,
men could also get breast cancer.
yes,
Should be checking for
yes,
colon cancer,
yes,
prostate cancer, the
yes,
same way a woman would check in the shower for her breasticles.
yes,
Guys should be checking their
yes,
testicles. I mean,
yes,
anything
yeah,
that feels out of place, you should be looking into, having that further examined. And what the problem is right now, and this has been since March,
yeah,
is a lot of preventive things that may have taken place.
yes,
People have avoided the hospital because it's not a great place to be. I can do it later. I put it off this long. I'll put it off a little bit longer. I think the window, and we're not. I mean, who knows whether we'll see the numbers or not. I think there will be an uptick in people that will be bad. The numbers with cancer diagnoses, and unfortunately, a lot of stage 5, if you know what I mean, is going to take place because people didn't get to it in time. When you think of pancreatic, your
yeah,
friend could find out about pancreatic cancer tomorrow and be gone next Thursday because it just, and others too. But like I've got so many people that I know that have loved ones that had something like that, and it just those ones seem to act so quickly, so quickly.
yeah. Well, there's some cancers that just move fast,
Mm.
or unfortunately, by the time you're symptomatic, they've progressed
They've
so
set up
far
camp. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you don't, that so that you're dealing with a couple different things, right? So you're dealing with like, for me, I had something called tall cell that just tends to multiply fast, right? Like it just goes quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, they didn't even know that until they took it out. So my biopsy showed cancer, but it didn't show specifically that type. So I was stage 1, but because I had this other type of cancer, um, it was really important that they got everything. And I ended up having to do something called radioactive iodine last December, where I swallowed radiation.
Oh, I
It's
remember that. You a bubble girl.
Yes,
Yes. You were
I
in a
was bubble
Ziploc
girl.
bag for what, 5 days, 7 days?
Yeah, so it was 7 days altogether.
Yeah.
I was radioactive, and the craziest part is that, like, if I had come in touch with you or my family, I could have damaged your thyroid, which is so crazy to
Yeah.
think about. Um,
The cure
they,
for you could have been trouble for somebody else, right?
yeah,
Weird.
because it kills any thyroid tissue in your
Mm.
body, and um, yeah, and it's pretty amazing because it lives in you for like 6 months. It like peaks at 6 months. So even this summer, it was still working
Yeah.
on any cells that may have been left behind from my surgery. But what's really crazy, so you go into this like the nuclear medicine ward of the hospital,
Like your
and you should,
EP. Yeah.
if you ever like run into somebody who had thyroid cancer, and now I run into them all the time because it's just, I'm very open about it. And interestingly enough, like I think I just sort of like end up randomly meeting people. Like I was in the car mechanic one day and there were 3 of us in there. One also a survivor, and he was from a nuclear fallout. And
Wow.
then a young kid in his 20s, his mom was a survivor, and she was like just had her thyroid removed like within a couple of weeks of being, and none of us knew each other. We're just sitting
Yeah.
waiting for our cars, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of run into these people now all the time. So if you ever hear somebody from the 70s tell you a story about what they had to do, it's crazy. Like they did crazy stuff in the 70s to people. But anyway, I had to go into this nuclear medicine ward. They had on like gloves, like it looked like something from like a World War II movie.
Yeah.
And they bring in like a metal box. And not even kidding. I should have taken pictures. It
With
was
the
like
nuclear football and the codes.
a
Yeah.
metal box. Yep. And then they have to like punch in the thing, open it. Inside it is a cylinder,
No, thank you. Keep going.
like a metal cylinder. And
Okay.
inside of that
Is the
is,
glowing tube.
is a little like, prescription bottle
Okay.
with one pill in it
Oh my God.
for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Like if it needs to be in all that stuff, do I really need to swallow it?
Isn't that unbelievable?
Then they have to monitor you for 45 minutes because if you vomit it up, it becomes a nuclear event, like a radiation event.
No pressure. Don't get sick, or we have to
Don't get
evac the
sick.
hospital.
Seriously.
That makes 0.0 sense. So I'll ask the guy a question. What happened when you pooped? It's coming out.
Oh, it smelled horrendous. Yeah.
Well, I just meant like, did you have to, did Maddie have to put in a new commode? Because now
Oh yeah.
that's
So,
nuclear.
oh no. So that's a real question. So like, that's real. So like, you can't share your bathroom. Like you can't, like,
Okay.
they can't use
Is
the
your
same
town on
shower.
septic, or you go to city water?
Yeah, we're on septic. So if there's radiation in my septic tank,
Nobody should smoke out back by the pool then, apparently, right? Uncle Tony throws a cigarette, the whole yard goes up.
yeah, yep. So yeah, you can't use the same, like your family can't use your bathroom for the
Interesting.
entire time.
Sure.
Yeah, and like you're supposed to, you know,
It
like
smells horrendous.
it did. It was like,
Not what I was asking, but I love that you shared. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm from a medical family. I will tell you anything. What else you want to know?
You're in on the hopper screaming, "Are you shitting me?"
I was like, what is
Dad,
coming
what's
up?
wrong with mom? She's fine. It's going to be fine. She's in there
No.
for 4 more days. Don't worry about it.
Oh my God, it was awful. Yeah, like Matt would knock on the door and like put food on a tray. And I had to like handle all my own, like I had a trash can in my room,
Right.
and I had, yeah, like all the things. Yeah, because that's the easy cancer.
So, yeah, well, let me ask you this then. Do the girls have a higher probability? Is there more of a proclivity for them to get thyroid or any type of cancer because you had it?
So what's weird,
And I guess you could ask that for all. I'm just thinking we've got friends who, you know, a lot of people that you and I know that have recently battled breast cancer. When you go down the breast cancer path, there's the BRCA path. If your mom tests for that, you have a higher probability of having it. So you test for it, which skews your numbers. So do the girls scan earlier than you did as a kid or a young lady now because of that, or what? And if you don't mind sharing your mom and all that stuff, like.
Yeah, no. So my girls, and they're due for blood work right now, actually. So they do have regular thyroid blood work now. They have a higher chance for thyroid disease.
Okay.
So thyroid cancer is kind of a funny one. There are a lot of people who end up with thyroid cancer who never had thyroid disease itself.
Okay.
Having thyroid disease alone doesn't necessarily open you up to a higher likelihood of thyroid cancer, unless you have Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's thyroid disease, because it's an attack on your thyroid, it has a higher chance of creating thyroid cancer, right? So the thing about thyroid cancer is that they don't really know what causes it other than really like nuclear fallout. So honestly, it's crazy, like Chernobyl.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Interestingly enough, there is a very high number of cases of thyroid cancer for people who lived in New York City around 9/11, which I did. So I don't know if that's, like, I already had a weak thyroid, and then living in New York City during that time. There are some studies that show that there's been a tremendous uptick in thyroid cancer since that event. So I don't, for people who lived in that area, and I went to school at NYU at that time, and I lived in Brooklyn, and so I lived there during that time. So because even the type of thyroid cancer that I have is so rare, and the only other person in this area that I know that had it or has had it as well, also lived in New York City at that time.
Wow.
So I don't know. Yeah. But then the other people that I know that have had, because tall cell it's a variant of papillary thyroid cancer, and it's a really rare one. It's just very rare. So even if you have thyroid cancer, like very few people will actually have these more aggressive ones. So yeah, I don't think my girls necessarily have a higher chance of thyroid cancer, unfortunately for them, they probably have a higher chance for colon cancer because we have such a family history of colon cancer, and that tends to run in families. Thyroid cancer doesn't necessarily run in families. I do have a lot of thyroid disease in my family. If you have thyroid disease, like in your family, you should absolutely, get checked regularly and have your kids checked. I think the other thing too is if you have Hashimoto's, everyone should have an ultrasound of their thyroid at some point. It's shocking to me how many people that is just not part of their care plan. And I'll tell you, in the year and a half or whatever since I was diagnosed, and this process has been going on for me, I have been, by me talking about this, directly connected to at least 7 different people either being diagnosed or having partial thyroidectomies because of tumors that weren't cancer, but were, pushing on their windpipe or making it all these symptoms. They couldn't swallow well. They kind of thought like they were brushing it off, right? So I've been really vocal because I'm just so thankful that I had early detection, and all the junk that I'm going to deal with the rest of my life, because my body is not the same. It could be a lot worse.
Right. Could be a lot worse.
It
So
could.
what's your recommendation? What do you want to leave people with today to make sure that they are doing what they can do from home?
Yeah,
Like,
so
what's the
check your
smartest
neck.
thing you can do from home?
Check your neck. It should never really, like, your thyroid is right, like your collarbone.
Sure.
Like for guys, you have an Adam's apple. It's sort of
Yeah.
right behind there. And it shouldn't hurt.
I don't really
So
have
if
an Adam's apple. I'm a bit of a princess. Like some guys have a massive Adam's apple. I'm like, that's so mannish.
yeah, right.
I don't
Like
really. I just have a fat Irish neck, I guess. I don't know. It's there, but it's not.
yeah, but so it would be right around there, right behind there. When
Okay.
you go for your physical and the
Yeah.
doctor feels your neck, that's what
Yeah.
they're feeling for,
Yeah.
actually, is they're feeling for any swelling, any lumps. If you feel a bump in there, that's not normal. Let your doctor know. Like you
Yeah.
shouldn't feel any bumps in there. If it hurts to touch, that's a sign that it's
Yeah.
inflamed. And sometimes people don't know until they actually, that's how most thyroid cancer is detected, is actually at a physical appointment. They go for their physical and the doctor asks you to swallow. They stand behind you and ask you to swallow.
Yeah.
They're feeling your thyroid, and all human beings have them unless they've been removed, right? Like we all have it.
Which you should know if that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Let's
should
that
know.
that really good weekend in Cabo. I don't know. I woke up with this scar and I feel great.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is I think that if you could get it detected early enough, and if you did have a tumor, I know lots of people who have little thyroid nodules that will never ever turn to cancer. They'll never be anything.
Yeah.
They just watch them and keep an eye on them. I know people who've had portions of their thyroid removed and they don't even need to take medication.
Yeah.
That's amazing, right? Like that wasn't an option for me. But and it's taken a year to finally get me on the right medication at the right dose.
Right.
I mean, we traveled in February, and I was buzzing like a top. I was manic because I just had too much hormone in my body, right? Like we just hadn't figured it out. So, it's a process. Like and I think if you just don't feel right, like keep pushing, because I think had I not all the time, where would I be right now? Honestly, because I had one of my thyroid tumors, the largest one was like right next to my carotid artery. And it was full of a really nasty little cancer. And had it gotten in there, it would have been through my whole body. And and I would have had a very different outcome. And I'm not saying it's been easy, because it hasn't been easy. But I have now more days where I feel like myself than, So I think that's just like, if you feel like something's wrong, please don't wait. Go get checked, check your neck. September is actually Thyroid Cancer Awareness Month. So we just finished that month of,
Yep.
being really public. And if you have any family history of any kind of cancer, go get checked. I just,
Sure.
I just had my first colonoscopy, which was not great.
You were in a
And
great room. Yeah.
well, it was great because it detected some stuff that needed to be
Adjust.
removed.
Yeah.
And, going forward, hopefully, will never end up with colon cancer because, again, they got in there early.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like eventually you're just going to be a head on a stick. We'll just wheel you around. Yeah.
I mean,
We're taking all the parts.
taking all the parts, but, well, and now okay, so I'm just eating fruit and vegetables and like completely, I'm already gluten free and like 90% dairy free.
Yeah.
So,
You're still
just
not
take,
cocktail free. That's why we're still friends. You're not cocktail free
gotta
yet.
take
Yeah.
the red meat. The
Yeah.
red meat's gone. I haven't had red meat since my colonoscopy on September 5th or whatever day I went.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gone. It's over. So I just, I think just trust yourself and trust your body. And if the doctor's trying to, give you a mental health check, also say, great, I'll do the mental
Yeah.
health check
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
need an ultrasound.
Yeah. Yep. My neck doesn't feel great. Well, I guess, and that's what I want to leave people with. My
Yeah.
concern, because I'm a doctor and I play one on
Yeah.
television.
Yeah.
My concern is right now with everything going on with COVID is that people are putting
Yes.
stuff off because they don't want to be in a hospital because they still feel there's such a heightened threat around medical facilities, or it can wait. There's more important. There's more pressing stuff. They need the hospitals are not overwhelmed right now. Knock on Formica. That being said, to Erin's point, if you need to push to get the diagnosis you need, if you feel there's something wrong, explore the hell out of it. And if you were putting something off before, I appreciate that because the hospitals were overrun. They're not right now. So get your appointment, get in, get the whatever physical or scan or treatment that you would normally go in for on a 6-month, 3-month, 12-month basis. Get back in line and get yourself in there to get checked out, because that's my biggest fear is on the other side of all this. We've ignored all this typical checkups that would have been taking place. And I think there's going to be a run of people that get there too late, and that will be a horrifying experience.
Well, and I almost was that person, right?
Yeah.
So my colonoscopy was supposed to be in March and it got postponed essentially because of COVID.
Yep.
Postponed to September. They called me. And the story that I struggled with in my own brain was, I'm 43. I'm probably not at high risk.
Yep.
If they rescheduled it, then it's probably not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, they found something not great in there. I mean, I had 5 inches of my colon taken out. So
all right, well, join us next week.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I could have told myself that story.
We'll have links to all the photos here on the page.
You don't want to see them. No, but I mean, like, I don't know. Just go. Like, because the thing, like, you're like, oh, well, they put off my breast exam. I don't need to go.
Right.
Well, the doctor's just looking at their schedule and they're moving you. They don't know that you have a lump because you didn't tell them.
Right. Communicate at a high level.
So go get it checked.
Bang the drum.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your story, kiddo.
It's a lot.
It is. And we don't, people are just like, are they going to post the photos? We're not going to post any photos.
No,
unless you want to, Erin. I don't think you do.
Them.
Yeah, no, we don't need to.
I mean, you can go to my Facebook and you can see the story of my scar, because I have shared a lot of those pictures of the, and now that you can't really see my scar that much, I don't have as much opportunity to be like, when people are like, what is that from? It's from thyroid cancer. Get your neck checked.
Get your neck checked. Absolutely. All right. We are going to be back at it next week. We've got a few people teed up. I don't know necessarily who's joining us. It will be a little more lighthearted than today's conversation, although today's conversation was important, needed to be had. I think we need to be aware of the fact that with everything else going on, our health and things that we're going to run into are still taking place. So please go see your doctor. If you've got a concern, go get it checked, and whatever you got put off for the last 6 months because of COVID.
Yeah, don't do it anymore.
Yeah, don't do it anymore. Get back in line.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's so much
go
fun.
see all the people, the
So much fun.
dentist, the
Get in
colon
front of it.
doctor.
Yes, get in front of it. All right, we'll talk to you soon, Erin,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you next week right here at Unscripted. Please like and share, and tell your friends if this is an experience that you're enjoying. Again, a little heavy with the material this week, although an important conversation. And we endeavor to keep bringing you stories of people that we know that are leaning into their passion and doing what they truly love. And we appreciate you watching this, sharing this, and liking this. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.